The moment Sarah walked into the upscale restaurant, she knew something was wrong. The hostess's pitying smile, the whispers from the corner booth, the phone camera pointed directly at her, all of it screamed setup. Her hands trembled as she clutched her discount store purse, suddenly aware of how out of place her 3-year-old dress looked among the designer outfits surrounding her. She'd worked a double shift at the diner just to afford the babysitter for tonight. Convinced by her co-workers that someone genuinely wanted to meet her. Now, watching Madison and her clique barely contain their laughter, Sarah realized she'd been nothing more than entertainment for the office mean girls. Sarah Chen had learned to expect cruelty. At 32, she'd survived an abusive marriage, a messy divorce, and the daily struggle of raising her 6-year-old daughter. Lily on a waitress's salary, her co-workers at the corporate office, where she cleaned after hours, had always treated her as invisible except for Madison's group, who seemed to view her as a curiosity, something to be mocked. When they'd gushed about setting her up with an amazing guy for a blind date, Sarah had wanted to refuse. But the genuine excitement in their voices, the way they'd insisted she deserved happiness, had cracked through her defenses. She'd dared to hope. What a fool she'd been. Oh my God, she actually came. Madison's voice carried across the restaurant, deliberately loud. Can you believe it? I told you she'd fall for it. Sarah's face burned. She turned toward the exit, desperate to escape. But her path was blocked by a tall figure in an impeccably tailored suit. She'd been so focused on Madison that she hadn't seen him approach. Sarah Chen? The man's voice was gentle, concerned. I'm James Park. I believe we're supposed to have dinner together. Sarah looked up at him, confused. He was handsome in that effortless way wealthy people often were, perfectly styled, dark hair, kind eyes behind designer glasses, an expensive watch that probably cost more than her car. This had to be part of the prank. Look, I don't know what they paid you to do this, Sarah said quietly, trying to step around him. But I'm not going to give them any more of a show. James frowned, then glanced toward Madison's table. His expression darkened with understanding. They told you someone set up this date? They told me a lot of things, Sarah said, her voice breaking despite her efforts to stay composed. I should have known better. People like me don't get fairy tale endings. People like you? James's voice sharpened. What does that mean? Single moms who clean toilets for a living? Sarah said bluntly. Women who buy their clothes at Goodwill and count quarters to afford their daughters' school supplies. Women who are apparently so pathetic that making fun of them counts as Friday night entertainment. Something shifted in James's expression, not pity, but a fierce kind of respect. My mother was a single mom who cleaned houses, he said quietly. She worked 3 jobs to keep me fed. I wore secondhand clothes until I was 16. And she was the strongest, most remarkable person I've ever known. Sarah stared at him, uncertain. Those women over there, James continued, his voice carrying enough that Madison's table fell silent. They set this up as a joke. They created a fake dating profile without your knowledge, matched it with my actual profile, and invited you here to humiliate you. What they didn't count on was me, actually, showing up early and overhearing their entire plan. The restaurant had gone quiet. Sarah could feel dozens of eyes on them. I could leave, James said, his voice soft again, meant only for her. I could walk out and let you go home and we'd both forget this happened. Or, he paused, meeting her eyes directly, we could sit down, have dinner, and show them that their cruelty only reveals their own emptiness. Not because I pity you, but because in the 5 minutes I've been talking to you, you've shown more genuine strength than anyone I've met in months. I would actually like to have dinner with you, Sarah, if you'll give me the chance. Sarah's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide from this humiliation. But something in James's eyes held her in place. Not pity, but genuine interest. Genuine kindness. Why? She whispered. You could have anyone. Why would you want to have dinner with someone like me? Because you remind me of my mom, James said simply. Because you got dressed up and came here alone, even though you were scared, because you wanted to believe in something good, because you work multiple jobs to support your daughter and still find reasons to hope. That's not pathetic, Sarah. That's extraordinary. Sarah felt tears threatening. I don't even know you. Then let's change that. James said, offering his arm. Let's have dinner. Let's talk. And let's remind this room that human decency still exists. The walk to their table felt like miles. Sarah could feel Madison's shocked stare, could hear the whispers rippling through the restaurant. But James kept his hand lightly on her back, guiding her with the kind of respect she'd almost forgotten existed. They sat. James ordered wine, then, noticing Sarah's discomfort with the prices, smoothly suggested they split an appetizer sampler instead. He asked about Lily, and Sarah found herself talking about her daughter's love of drawing, her dreams of becoming an artist. James listened with genuine interest, sharing stories about his own mother's sacrifices, how she'd encouraged his interest in technology even when they could barely afford food. She passed away 2 years ago, James said quietly, right before my company went public. She never got to see that the sacrifices she made actually paid off. Your company? Sarah asked. James smiled ruefully. Park Technologies. We develop affordable educational software. My mother always said education was the only way out of poverty. I wanted to make it accessible to families like ours. Sarah's eyes widened. Park Technologies was massive. She'd seen their products in Lily's school. You're that James Park? Guilty, he said. Though I prefer to think of myself as that kid who wore shoes 2 sizes too small for 3 years because his mom couldn't afford new ones. They talked for hours. James asked about her dreams, the ones she'd put on hold when she got pregnant at 25, when her ex-husband had insisted she quit college. Sarah told him about her secret hope of maybe, someday, becoming a teacher, about how she helped Lily with homework and felt that spark of joy when concepts clicked. Why did you stop? James asked. Single parenthood doesn't leave much room for dreams, Sarah said. Between the diner shifts and the cleaning job, I barely have time to sleep. College is expensive and Lily needs to eat. What if it didn't have to be one or the other? James asked carefully. What if there were scholarship programs, specifically for single parents? Returning to education? Those are rare, Sarah said, and competitive. I looked into them before Lily was born. They don't have to be rare, James said thoughtfully. They should be common. They should be accessible. Someone should make sure of it. As the evening wound down, James insisted on walking Sarah to her car, a beat-up Honda with a cracked windshield. He didn't flinch at the contrast. Between her vehicle and his, luxury sedan parked nearby. Thank you, Sarah said, for being kind, for making this evening something other than humiliating. Thank you, James countered, for giving me a chance, for reminding me why I do what I do. He paused, then pulled out his business card. This is going to sound forward, but I'd like to see you again. Not because of pity or charity, but because I genuinely enjoyed talking with you. You're brilliant and resilient, and your daughter is lucky to have you. Would you consider having coffee sometime? Somewhere less pretentious than this place? Sarah took the card with shaking hands. I'd like that. 3 months later, Sarah received a scholarship notification from Park Technologies, newly established single-parent education fund. She called James immediately, ready to refuse what she assumed was charity. Check the selection committee, James said calmly. I'm not on it. I funded the program, but an independent panel reviews applications. Yours was selected on merit. Your essay about teaching is social justice. You're maintaining a perfect GPA while working 2 jobs. You earned this, Sarah. 2 years later, Sarah graduated with her teaching credential. James attended the ceremony, cheering louder than anyone when she crossed the stage. Lily sat beside him, calling him Uncle James, though both adults knew the relationship had evolved beyond friendship. Madison sent a bitter message when she saw their announcement on social media. James blocked her without responding. Sarah didn't block her. She sent a simple reply. Thank you for that blind date. It changed my life. Because sometimes cruelty reveals not the weakness of its victim, but the character of those who refuse to participate in it. Sometimes the worst pranks become the best beginnings. And sometimes when someone sees past your circumstances to your worth, when they recognize strength in survival and beauty in resilience, that's when real magic happens. Not because billionaires always save struggling single mothers, that's a fairy tale, but because 2 people who understood hardship recognized each other's humanity, because kindness met courage halfway, because Sarah had raised herself up long before James arrived, and he was wise enough to see that her worthiness had never been in question. The real prank, Sarah realized, was on those who thought poverty and struggle diminished someone's value. They'd tried to humiliate her and instead had introduced her to someone who understood that a person's worth isn't measured in wealth or status, but in the strength it takes to keep hoping when the world keeps taking. And in teaching Lily that lesson, that kindness matters more than cruelty, that dignity isn't determined by circumstance, that love recognizes worth where others see only weakness, Sarah and James built something far more valuable than a fairy tale ending. They built a real one, founded on mutual respect and shared understanding of what it means to struggle, to survive, and to choose compassion in a world that often rewards its opposite.